Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome, welcome. I'm just I have two cameras actually. We're live with TikTok. Hello, my TikTok friends and family. And we're also live on a couple other places. So, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. RB, and I am the president and owner and chief psychologist for Love Our Father Retreat. Mostly, I work with immigration attorneys, doing all type of immigration evaluations, as well as in-depth psychology sessions, analytic sessions, or Jungian-oriented psychotherapy. And I'm located in Miami, Florida. So hello, all my Miami friends. And I'm also in Galicia, northern Spain. So for mis españoles, mis galegos, bem-vindos aquí a mi live. So today I'm really excited because I'm going to be starting these lives every Thursday at 7 o'clock US Eastern time zone. So it's 7 o'clock in the evening, which would be 1 in the morning for my European friends and 12 midnight for my UK friends. And pretty much, I don't figure out the time zone wherever you're at, because I do have people all different parts of the world. So I'm here today, and we're going to really go through this book. That's what my plan is. For those of you that don't know, this is one of my favorite readings that I started reading last year. And actually, I started this for those of you that didn't hear. I was on a drive to Monforte, which is about 40 minutes away from Orense here in Galicia, and I was driving and I heard an interview with Michael Singer and Oprah Winfrey on the Super Soul Sunday. And so I was listening to this, it drew my attention, and I thought, oh, I'm going to get that book and I'm just going to go through it. So I did. I bought the book and I read the book. And right away, for those of you that know how I work, I am a Jungian trained licensed psychologist, so which is different than a Jungian analyst. So just to be clear, I am a Jungian trained licensed psychologist, and so everything that I do in the world of psychology, I'm always going to conceptualize it through the lens of Jungian psychology or analytical psychology. And so that's kind of the framework that I'm going to be looking and discussing this book. Uh, Michael Singer touches upon some similar concepts, so there's some overlap, and there are some other things that are not, and I'll also kind of dive into that. And as you can see here in the front of the book, Deepak Chopra, another wonderful person that I like to follow as well, he talks about read this book carefully, and you will get more than a glimpse of eternity. And so that's really nice that he states that. What does that mean, right? So those are some of the things that we're going to be diving to. Now, I have here also, so you'll see me look a couple cameras, and I also have a chat on the side as well. So I can see whoever is coming in on the chat. I'm going to be answering questions towards the end. So, and as I go through, I'll probably answer some questions as well. So here we go. So again, this book is called The Untethered Soul. And just starting off with that title, The Untethered, and then it shows a black horse running freely on a beach. So I just even want to start there. And when we think of something that's tethered, we think of something that's tied, right? And the image that is coming to my mind right now is an image of a balloon, and that something that you are holding on to. Maybe the balloon has a string and that's being tethered. We could also think of tethered, for example, I'm thinking also of like the space station. The International Space Station has a lot of things that are tethered to the main space station. And when astronauts go out and kind of go around the space station, they have to tether themselves to the main space station, because otherwise, they can go flying off. And here, the title is The Untethered Soul. So the soul that's not tied to anything, rather, it's the soul that is totally free and kind of running around freely like this black horse. I also like this image of the black horse because the black horse also, there's a sense of mystery there with the black horse. The black horse, and I don't know if you can see it, there's a little, I don't think it's meant to look like a unicorn, but there is a little something coming out of the front. It appears like it's coming out of the front, like if it were a unicorn, or maybe my imagination allows it to easily become a unicorn. Maybe it's an illusion that Michael Singer wanted to hint there. So there's this idea of darkness, which I don't want people to think darkness is equated with evil or something bad or something wrong. It's really a sense of mystery. So when something is dark, there's a mystery that goes with it. Because light, we usually think of light symbolically as consciousness, or when we shed light on something. Even when we're talking, we say, can you shed some light on that? Meaning, can you share consciousness, clarification, or even logic? It allows our logic mind to make some sense to it. But here we have a black, dark horse. And so I'm equating that with the soul. That's kind of how I look at that. So this dark horse is part of the soul. It's like the soul in all its mystery running freely on a beach. Now, let's also talk about that, because the beach has a lot of symbolism to that. We have the ocean, which is the part that's further away from the beach. And so the ocean has a lot of depth. And the ocean in many cultures has also the symbolism of mystery. And because for many, many, many years, even to the modern day, the ocean remains a mystery. There's a lot of the ocean that we still don't know and we don't understand. I know that NASA, the same part of the government that sends things into space, NASA explored a lot of the ocean, but it's not 100%. And so there still remains a mystery to this ocean. And so there's a lot of depth there. So we have the ocean, a place of mystery, which could also symbolize the unconscious. And then you have the beach. So it's almost like where land meets the depth. And this kind of place where there's overlap, because there's overlap with the ocean going onto the beach, right? You have the waves that are kind of coming up to the sands of the beach. So there's this sense of overlap. And where the ocean meets the depth, this is the part that we're there. So it's almost like that's where I would say the soul kind of roams. The soul runs around in this place of overlap. So the beach going into the ocean, which is what the beach is. The beach is where the land and the sea meet and the waves overlap onto the sand. So here, just looking at just the beginning of this book, the cover page of the book. There's so much here that's kind of hinting of what is inside this book. So my first question to all of you is, do you allow yourself to go to the beach? And of course, in Miami, that's something that's very common, right? We do have a beach, very nice beach. And the funny thing is, many people that are locals, they don't get to go to the beach, or they don't see the beach much. They probably see it on the news, or whenever they show different commercials of the beaches. But I would say the beach has mostly tourists than locals. I would probably dare to say that. But my question is, do you allow yourself to go to this place where your awakened ego mind, and we'll unpack that in a minute, meets this place of mystery, this place of depth? And this is where the soul is running freely. So that's kind of how I want to look at this. And then the subtitle, which is interesting, says the journey beyond yourself. So the journey beyond yourself. What does he mean by that? Of course, um, I'm going to be looking at this through a Jungian lens, where when I talk about the self, I'm going to talk about it in with a capital S. So the self is something different. It's something that we all have, but it's not what we know as me. So again, when I talk about the ego, I'm talking about what we identify with. So I'm Dr. R.B. Hernandez. That's tied to my ego. That's tied to an identity that has been created. And I partook of that creation and studying and getting my license and all of that. But it's different to the self, which is this more authentic essence that we all have. And so this is something that it's interesting, because the book is already telling you that this is about a journey. And Michael Singer is already letting you know that you are going to begin one place and you're going to end up in another place. So there's a journey that's about to take place. And this journey is going to take you outside of what you identify with. So I think that's interesting. Outside of your self with a little s, or outside of your identity, outside of who you think you are. And I think that's amazing. That really is amazing there. Just again, we're just here on the cover of the book. We haven't even opened the book yet. So that's very interesting. I'm going to invite every one of you to, if you have a chance, to get a copy of the book. I'm not selling the book or anything like that. But if you want to join me in actually reading the book, and every week we're going to digest pieces of this book, which I think is important to look at, especially in light of all the things that are happening in the world. A lot of us are living with a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety, which is made up of feeling nervous, having trouble sleeping, feeling irritable. These are all like symptoms of anxiety. Doesn't mean you have the disorder, but there's a lot of different parts of ourselves that are really suffering during this time. You have to be careful how much you're consuming as far as the news and as far as what you read. You really have to take care of yourself, because it can feel overwhelming. This picture here shows a very calm beach, and the waves look very calm. They don't look like they're large waves. Kind of looks like Miami. Miami doesn't have a lot of surfing waves. But today, a lot of us are feeling like the waves are huge, like they're 20 feet high, right? Like a tsunami, because we just feel so overwhelmed. And so here we go on this journey that's going to move us from what we think we are to something else, something beyond. And I love that word, beyond. So it's like you already can see that it's further away and it's going to invite us there. So this is point number one here that we're going to be looking at. And the first point I want to talk about, which he mentions in the book, is this idea of the voice inside your head, the voice inside your head. And I think that's wonderful because we all have this voice, don't we? I think we do. I'm seeing a couple of people in the chats. Yep, they're saying that they have a voice inside their head. So I'm seeing that there. And it's interesting because the voice, a lot of times, we hear things that are, for example, like the monkey mind. We hear a lot when people refer to this monkey mind. And the monkey mind gives this idea that it doesn't stop. And this voice is something that, for some of us, it is nonstop. It's always talking, always having this monologue inside our head. Sometimes it's so loud and so irritating that we can't sleep. And so, this is this idea in the very first chapter that Michael Singer here is presenting, the voice inside your head. And it's this inner voice that is constantly talking, chattering. It's also judging, it's analyzing, it's constantly naming things. And it just keeps going and going like the bunny, the Energizer bunny, right? And so this is something that when we are thinking of moving beyond what we think we are, beyond ourselves, this is also what we're talking about. We're talking about how to we get away, or it's something that I don't want you to think you can just shut down. I don't want you to think that you can fight it, because it's not good to fight this voice. The more you fight it, the more power it gets. And I can't help but think of a story when I was in India. We're talking about 2018. I had never been to India. And so I had to go there for work. And so I took a flight from Miami to Doha, and then from there changed planes and then went on to India. So most flights arrive in Bangalore or Bangalore, the southern part of India. Most of them arrive around 2 in the morning. And which, don't ask me what time it was in Miami, because I would have to calculate that. But it was, if it was 2 in the morning, okay, here I go to calculate. There's my monkey brain there. But anyway, we landed there. And one of the things that I remembered and I was fascinated by was the amount of monkeys everywhere. And especially when I took a flight after I finished my week long program that I was doing there. I was facilitating a program there. I took a flight up to New Delhi, and there I saw a lot of monkeys. And when I went over to Agra, there was even more monkeys there. And it was just amazing to me, the amount of monkeys. And the driver, because I had met a driver and hired this wonderful, wonderful driver, Darhu, who took us all around. And he said, do not trust the monkeys. And the monkeys would get on top of the car and they would, be nice to you. They would try to manipulate you because they wanted some food. And of course, like every other tourist, I guess, you think it's cute, and then you take out a piece of fruit and you give it to them. And before you know it, you have about 60 monkeys on the car. And they can bang up the car. They can try to break the glass. It can get scary. So the driver warned us not to do that. And so we were able to kind of have this respectful relationship with the monkeys. So this is kind of similar with the voice inside your head. If you try to control this voice, if you try to outsmart the voice, if you try to feed the voice or pay attention to the voice, it's going to get louder and it's going to stick around. So, one of the things that all you can do is allow the voice to be. And this is something that he talks about with learning to observe the voice, allow the voice to be without identifying with the voice. So, it's just kind of there. And when you don't focus on the voice, when you don't give it energy, because attention, and some of us have heard this saying that attention, energy goes where attention, energy flows where attention goes. And it's so true. Whatever we pay attention to, we feed it and it grows. And that's where the energy goes. So by simply allowing it to be there, not judging it, not getting into a fight with it, if I would have gotten into a fight with these monkeys, I probably would have lost because they look small, but when you get 60 of them all together, forget it, you're going to lose. And the same thing is with this voice inside our head. It's with practice, you allow to diminish little by little the attention that you give the voice. And that's where meditation, a tool like meditation, is so important. And meditation is not just quieting the mind. I think quieting the mind becomes an effect of the meditation, but it's not something that we do. What we do is just observe. We become an observer. In meditation, you observe your breath, your breathing, your heartbeat. You can observe your pulse. You're constantly observing. And as you're observing, you are letting go, and your body begins to enter a state of relaxation, increased relaxation. And your brain waves goes from beta to alpha and then to delta and even to theta if you meditate for a long time and you get that practice in. But here it's talking really about in this chapter of identification. That's one of the key things here. We can have a voice inside our head that says, "You're not good enough. Who do you think you're joking? Oh, you're such a fake. Look at you. Oh, there's a new pimple on your face. Everyone's going to make fun of you. You are ugly." You see, those are kind of some of the things the voice can say, and it doesn't always have to be negative, but whatever it says, it's just there. It's saying it, but we don't identify. We don't think that's us. In other words, when you identify and you think that is you saying all these things, then that gives it more life. It gives it more attention, more energy. And that's what we don't want. And, I could talk about how this voice is made up of different life experiences that we've had. The voice could be the voice of our parents that we have, interjected into us. Instead of project, we bring it in. We swallowed these people into our, psyche, for lack of a better word, into our mind. And we hear them and we hear them as if they were them. And so the interesting thing is, not only are we not going to identify thinking that's us, but it's not a good idea to think it's them either. It's very similar to when we dream. When we dream and we dream of our parents, and our parents are maybe not acting in nice ways to us, that's a dream. That's not your parent. Your parent didn't get inside your head and talk to you while you were sleeping. It's really that part that in our mind unconsciously we have created, and it resembles your parent because that's what your unconscious is putting together. And of course, there's a lot more there to that. I'm being overly simplistic with that. So there's a lot more to that. But what I'm trying to get at is this whole idea of identification. We want to avoid identifying with the voice. So whenever you hear the analysis, or whenever you hear all these things that the voice is saying to you, it's okay. Let the voice talk. Let it talk, let it talk, let it talk. And eventually, little by little, the voice will become in the background. And as it goes in the background, little by little, it'll keep going back and back until it fades. It really does. And, this is something that takes some practice. And it's really about allowing. And he talks a lot about that in the book. It's about this idea of just allowing things to be. And when you allow things to be, you let go of that. And so there's this idea of letting go. You don't tether it. You let it run wild without being tethered. So, that's another piece to it. It's not only that the soul is untethered, this is going to be untethered too, that voice, that chatting, that constantly judging or analyzing or naming things inside your head. That has to be, you know, allowed. You don't tether it, you don't control it, you kind of allow it to be. And so this is one of the things that he mentions here. And I'll just, it's interesting. I know the time is just flying by, and I had quite a number of things that I thought I was going to touch upon, but I think that this is a good place to maybe stop and get some questions and look at this. So, if there's anyone, I'm seeing a bunch of different questions here as I'm going through the live, and I would like to answer some of those. Let me just. Okay, so someone here, um, a lot of these have screen names, so I'm not going to name them because they're not the person's real name anyway, and that's okay. But we have someone here that said that they do have tons and tons of monkey brain that keeps them up at night. And so again, this individual who's telling me that's keeping them up at night, I can imagine if they try to fight these voices, they're not going to get any sleep. It's when they allow these voices to just go that they'll fall asleep. I know, speaking personally from experience, when I'm falling asleep, there's times where I'm thinking of something, and as long as I'm not engaged in that thinking, I feel myself just going down, down, down until I'm asleep. And I've learned to not, once I start thinking with it, it's almost like a train. If there's a train going by and I decide to get on the train, then that's going to keep me up at night. So I just allow the train to go by me. I look at the train, it's going by, by, by. And then finally, the whole train just passes me. And I can see the train keep going into the distance, and it disappears over a hill or in the horizon or what have you. It's kind of like that. I do find that when I start thinking with my thoughts, usually it's some issue or something I'm dealing with, like most of the time that keeps us up at night. And if I start like trying to think of a solution, that's it. I'm already identifying, and I'm on the train, and then I won't sleep. But as soon as I catch myself doing that, what I do is I just stop and I just allow it. And I just allow it, and I slowly start to, kind of see it or hear it, depending on what the thought looks like, and it just kind of disappears. It goes away. And that's something that you could do. A lot of people use white noise. White noise is anything that's constant. It's like a noise that's not very loud. For example, the humming of an air conditioning unit would be a white noise. In northern Spain, there's a lot of humidity. So in the rooms, we have the anti-humidifier, and the anti-humidifier has a white noise, so it's nice. And sometimes we get so used to the white noise that when we have complete silence, then we freak out and we can't sleep, right? So some people use white noise, and they use it to help them get to sleep, because what happens is the mind, or we start hearing the white noise, and that kind of helps us not to get into our um, mind with this inner voice that's constantly chatting. So thank you for that. I'm sure you're not the only one. Uh, one of my recommendations with sleep, and this is a little bit off topic, but I'll go into it anyway. I believe in sleep hygiene. So if you do have trouble sleeping, good sleep hygiene. And what do I mean by that? For example, you stay away from any type of caffeine 4 to 6 hours before bedtime, because that could also affect your sleep. You don't do any exercises 4 hours before, or 2 to 4 hours, I would say, depending on your body, because exercise can get you going. It can give you some energy. So don't do any extreme exercise, or where your heart rate goes really high. Going for a nice walk after dinner, that's good, because that's more calming and might relax you. It'll get rid of some of that energy. So that might be good. Another part of the sleep hygiene is be careful with blue lights in your bedroom. If you have an alarm clock that has a blue light, try to switch it to a more amber light, like candles, like a candlelit lighting. That's better for sleeping. And the last thing I'll say is, television. I know there are so many people that use the television as white noise. So they'll put the TV on and it helps them go to sleep. Um, I would, because of the unconscious, I would be very careful with that, because even though you're falling asleep, whatever you have on, it could affect the unconscious, and so it's almost like you're hypnotized. So I would really recommend not to have the news on as white noise, because the news has a lot of negative information, and that could also affect you unconsciously. And so try to be careful with that. And so, yeah, so just really take care of yourself, especially during this time of uncertainty, when there's just so much happening, and all of that. And so I'll take one more question. Let's see here. We have another question here that says, "What do you mean by the unconscious? I thought it was called subconscious." And that's a good question, actually. Um, in the depth psychology schools, which would be like the Freudian schools, or schools under Carl Jung, or object relations, or anything like that, it's known as the unconscious. Recently, in the last couple decades, people have been calling it the subconscious, and they use the word sub to mean like underneath consciousness. And I don't agree with that term as much. I can understand where how they're using that term. And what I would even say is the subconscious is not the unconscious. The subconscious would be part of the unconscious. I can maybe accept that. Sort of like the top layer, if you will, without getting too technical, the top layer of the unconscious, which would be the part of the unconscious that's closer to us personally, or close to our waking life. Maybe that could be regarded as the subconscious. But when I'm talking about the unconscious, I'm talking about anything that's below the line, when you are no longer conscious, when you are no longer consciously in control. So we'll just kind of say that. Okay. I really hope, it's my hope that you get a copy of the book and really join me as we kind of go through the book. There's a couple other points here that I'll touch upon next week. So, my goal and my promise to you is to be here live on Thursdays at 7 p.m. US Eastern in the evening. That way, I catch all our folks that are working during the day. And so I'll be here Thursdays at 7 p.m. US Standard, which will be, 5 o'clock in Mountain Time, because I do have my sister, my niece, my nephew-in-law, and my cute little gosh, I have to think, a grand niece. My niece had a little beautiful girl, Sage, and she's beautiful. And so they're over there in Mountain Time. So they're joining me there, and it'll be 5 o'clock in Mountain Time and 4 o'clock in LA. So once again, thank you so much for your time and joining here. And I do hope that you kind of give, I hope this is something that you can think about and ponder, and it could be really helpful as a way of reconnecting to who you truly are. My website is discoveringmyself.com. So, once again, that's discoveringmyself.com. And there on the website, there's a couple more information there. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can do that through the website. I also just created a wonderful bot, an AI bot there that can answer all kinds of questions for you about analytical psychology and about the unconscious and things like that. So it's a wonderful bot. It's an agent there that's 24 hours there to answer your questions. But you can get a hold of me through the website as well if you have any other questions. But until then, I wish all of you to just observe, allow the voice inside to talk and talk and talk as much as the voice wants to talk. But then you are going to sit back, and little by little, the voice will get further and further away. Okay. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And for those of you here on this side of the pond, have a wonderful morning. And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much. And it's been such a pleasure having you on this live.